I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to the Wrong Cat Tie, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. She was Bombalurina on the Royal Caribbean Oasis of the Seas, and then just finished up on the Asia tour in Taiwan as a swing. So welcome, Lucy Rice, and thank you for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm excited. I have only talked to one person that has been on the Asia tour, and I talked to them actually when they were not on that tour. They were somewhere else. So you're going to be the first to be able to talk about this production really for me. So I want to, before I get into Royal Caribbean and the Asia tour, I actually love to start though at the beginning. So let's start at your cat's history. When were you introduced? I know you're a dancer. So was it the 1998 movie that you saw? Was it a production you saw touring? Like, when were you first introduced to the show?
Oh, I wish. No, I unfortunately was one of those that didn't know about the show very well until I did it.
Not at all. Okay.
Not really. It was actually quite a funny story because I was living with two of my housemates at the time, and they both got auditions for two different productions of Cats, and I didn't get one. So I was like, but it's fine. I'm not that fussed. It's okay. And anyway, long story short, they ended up getting cut. That's all fine. But then I ended up getting auditions for both of those again, like later on. And then I ended up getting the ship. So it was quite funny that it was.
So which were
like,
the two?
So I also was for the international tour, but I got a couple rounds through, and then that was it. And then auditioned, and I was actually late cast for the Royal Caribbean production. So I literally just did one self-tape for Bombalurina, and then I arrived about a week later than everyone else, and started rehearsals. So it was
and
pretty quick.
At that point, you know nothing. You know nothing about the show. And I
didn't really know anything. It was like I had to record Macavity for the videotape, and I was there at work at my donut shop that I worked at, just learning the song because I'd heard it maybe once or twice, but didn't know it. And I think any kind of musical theatre student has learned the Copeland section of the Jellicle Ball at least once or twice in their lifetime. So I roughly knew that, but I actually had just done the international tour audition the week before I did the tape, so I'd learnt it there. So thankfully I could get the tape done pretty quick. But yeah, and so I got to the rehearsals, and I was like sat there with the director, he lives and breathes cats, the director at Royal Caribbean. So I sat down and I just felt so nervous. I was thinking, God, and maybe I should have done some research before I got to this job. It was my first professional job. I was like, I don't want to look bad. But I sat there in front of him, and he goes, so Lucy, what do you know about cats? Do you know anything about it? And I honestly just had to sit there and go, no, not much. But he kind of loved that he could tell me. He sat and told me the whole story, and he went into so much detail about it that I loved hearing his passion for it, and it made me go into the rehearsal process and kind of understand what we were doing. So I'm kind of grateful that that's how I got into the show, because I came at it from like a creative point of view rather than watching it and not really understanding what was going on. Because I personally think I would have watched the show and just gone, if I had seen the show, I'd watched it and gone, don't get it. Which is why I think it's a bit of a controversial show as it is. Why some people.
So I want you to bring me back to that moment when he tells you, sits you down, you know nothing, and walks you through the whole thing. What was going through your head? Like, were you like, wow, I never knew there was this much? Or like, were you blown away by that?
It was very overwhelming because I'd heard Memory, so I knew that. And I knew it was a show about cats, but I didn't realize that it could be such a detailed storyline. And especially going through the rehearsal process as well, like every single little moment has a meaning, which was crazy to me, that a lot of the time the audience wouldn't even see that. But in order for us to be able to tell an authentic story in a way of being cats, we had to know all these little details that might not even be known to an audience. And he was telling me that before I'd even started the rehearsals. So I was like, wow, this is a lot. But as soon as he was telling me about it and like I got into the rehearsal process, I was like, wow, I love this show. It's so me, which is really funny knowing that I was looking back on it and being like, I'm not that fussed. I didn't get an audition. Don't really want to, not that fussed about cats anyway. Doesn't seem like a show for me. I could not have been more wrong.
Yeah. So I kind of love that moment. Now you're on the Royal Caribbean Cruise. This is now the 90-minute version, right? So you're past the point where they've cut out Bust a Fur and a couple of the other pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it still made sense to me because that's all I knew. So yeah, but it's definitely, now that I've done the full version of the show, it's definitely shortened. You can tell. Yeah.
So I want to hear, what do you remember from the Royal Caribbean time? Do you have any, it sounds like the tour or like the production is crazy with stories because it's on a ship, it's kind of like, the ship's built around the whole stage and everything. So what stories do you remember? What are some of the crazy fun memories from doing on the ship?
I mean, it's a whole different ball game doing it for an audience of people that aren't necessarily there to see cats. It's the entertainment that's provided for them. So it was definitely like we had to really, really love the show. Not that the audience didn't enjoy it, because they definitely did a lot of the time, but we were very aware that like there were moments where people would leave halfway through and we had to go, that's fine. But we would make fun for ourselves in the show I mean, it helped that we did love doing the show. But just moments like, we'd have a rocky show and things would go different. I remember doing one part of the show and I was on one side of the stage, and next thing I know I was on the other, because the ship went on its own, like rocked a bit. But yeah, it was more just funny, like seeing, actually sometimes when we'd see that we'd converted audience members to actually, like, they'd probably sit down and be a bit skeptical about the show, and then we'd see them by the end and they loved it, and we were like, that's why we're doing it, because you never know what fans you could find even on a ship. But yeah, it was weird doing it on the ship, especially now that I've done it not on the ship. It's a whole different thing.
It's a paid audience versus an unpaid audience. I think that's a part that you're kind of referencing to. That's so much different. Of like everyone that's going when you're in Taiwan has made a choice and invested in going, versus everyone on the ship has invested in going on a cruise and have decided to give you all 90 minutes of their time on the cruise, but with no other investment to it. It's just like, oh, I could pop in and then I could pop out.
Yeah, although despite that, what was funny to me is that because it was like an American audience and like a Taiwanese audience, which is what I was kind of with, the culture is so different that the way that they expressed their love for the show was so different. Like an American audience, they're obviously so loud. They're going to let their love be known. As soon as Memory ended, every single show was full of applause and whoops and cheers. We'd get to Taiwan and we knew they loved the show because they paid to come and see it. They would tell us, we'd see them at stage door. They absolutely adored what we did, but they were so much more reserved that it felt weird to me that I was like, but how do these guys love this so much? And they're like, we'll get to Memory and there'll be silence. But it's because their way of kind of expressing it and kind of feeling the show is just to sit and enjoy it. So that was weird. That was a weird thing for me to experience.
I love that.
But I loved it.
I know. I live in New York, so I'm doing a lot of I get to go to a lot of theater here. And you're right. Our American crowds are sometimes a little over the top. And there's been some shows where I'm like, all right, people chill, calm down, and quit talking. And I would love to sit in a theater where you could just appreciate the art. And so that sounds almost therapeutic.
Because we'd go into the audience as well. When we'd go into the audience and they'd be sat there looking at us like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're so close to me. I can't believe the cats are in the audience. They're looking at me. They're like interacting with me. And I'd be thinking like, oh my God, like, I can't believe we can do this for them. So we can see it on their faces, how much they're loving the show. But yeah, it just gets to the end of a number and it's a really polite applause. It's just like,
Wow.
really, really funny, the difference. And then you'd come out of the show on the ship and you'd see someone and be like, the show wasn't for me. And I'm like, but you, I don't know. Just, so we've definitely had our fair share of, well, I've definitely had my fair share of like a range of audiences, which changes the energy on the stage actually as well.
Definitely. So let's pivot to Taiwan, because I have not talked to nearly as many people that have done the Asia tour. And you already have highlighted one kind of major difference is that the audience is just in general different. I love that. I know that it's also, I believe, more Julian Lynn's choreography. So it sounds like you got to go into the audience, but what are some of the differences you notice besides the audience between doing Royal Caribbean and then going on to the full Asia tour?
I mean, it's tricky for me because my rehearsal process for the tour was very short. I was brought in quite last minute for the tour. So I had about 4 days in London to be told, right, you're going to be covering these roles. It wasn't even really a rehearsal. It was kind of a recap for all the people that had done Korea. And then I was kind of thrown in. So that was a bit strange, not necessarily having the full rehearsal process of it to know the difference between the two productions so much. They were both directed by different people. We were directed by Chrissy Cartwright for this production, and to work with her was amazing for me. As I say, our director on Royal Caribbean was incredible as well. But I know that Chrissy has done so much work around the show and everything, and her history with the show. So yeah, to be able to say I've done the show with her was amazing, and I loved her direction of the show. Was very minimalized. So like you didn't have to necessarily show anything too much, but it was all about the thought process, which I really appreciated. Other than that, it was mainly just like I did find my interactions with everyone on stage was slightly different. Whether that was just because it was a different cast, I don't know, or if it's because their direction that they'd gone through was different to the direction that I'd gone through, as in like interacting with people on stage. I never went through that directorial kind of process for the Asia tour because my first show was with 2 hours notice and I'd never done the show with anyone on the stage. So it was very much being thrown in. But just the stories that you'd have, like I'd have a storyline with my play Toma Cavity on the ship, and then I'd get to the Asia tour and we're doing something slightly different. And it was really refreshing actually to do it in a different way. But mainly just my intentions towards things were slightly different, especially because I managed to play Bombalurina in both productions as well. How I approached things, like how I approached my interactions with Demeter were slightly different, and but that was mainly just because how I was told to do it was slightly different.
So I mean, that's so interesting because I think that there is like a lot of different variations of the relationships that could be played, and I kind of love like thinking back to you sitting on I just am assuming, and I don't know if it's actually the case, I'm sure you rehearsed not on the ship, but like just you sitting on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, just being like told the 2 hour, a day's worth of story of cats, and then getting none of that when you go, because you're kind of, again, thrown in at the last second as an emergency. And they're like, hey, you know enough. You know the show, you've done it, you kind of know. We don't have to tell you the whole story.
Bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to let you just go because, you can get away with it if you think that, maybe this is the relationship versus that's relationship. The audience isn't going to notice the difference.
Yeah. In a way, I kind of enjoyed that because it felt a bit more organic what my choices were. I felt like because I was playing the same role every show and I was doing the same thing every show on Royal Caribbean, it was very much like I knew what I was going to do. Acting choice wise, not that there was always much difference anyway, but like generally my choices were exactly the same. The show was pretty similar every night. Whereas with this, especially because there were two roles that I'd never done before thrown in the mix, my choices were different every time I did a show because I was finding new things out. I was acting against different people. The set itself is slightly different. So I would see like a pipe that wasn't on the stage on the ship, and I'd be like, well, I'm gonna sit on that. But like just things like that. I was able to find that out during the show, which is a little bit scary, but also just made the choices a bit fresher and a bit more organically produced, rather than it being like a set in motion kind of thing.
Yeah. So you covered Bomb, Demeter, and Jenny Dodd. So I want to know, who'd you go on for first in Taiwan?
So I first went on for Demeter, actually.
Well, okay, so 2 hours notice, Demeter. I'm curious to hear, for the first times that you went on for Demeter and Jenny Dodds, how much of your depiction of their story was what you thought as Bombalurina from the ship? Like, is that how it was like, hey, here's what I think that, like, I was told from the Bomb perspective that this is Demeter and this is Jenny? Or did you try to kind of get a little bit from either somebody that had just finished, or from Chrissy, or from somebody else?
Well, with Demeter, she's like Bomb's sister, like Bomb's partner in crime. So I'd spend a lot of time with her on stage, or even just looking at her on stage, because she's always looking out for her and keeping an eye on her in some way. So I kind of put my Demeter head in the perspective of how Bomb would see her, because that's just the only way I'd known. Also, in a way, I relate a bit more to Demeter as a person rather than Bomb. Like, I love playing Bomb, but she's not very me. So I would look at Demeter and be like, I'm a bit more of a anxiety kind of like anxious head. So when, especially being thrown on last minute, that acting choice came out strong, because I was anxious and scared. But it came out in a nice way, I guess. At least fit the character a bit. But so yeah, with Demeter, it was like I kind of knew how to play her because of being with Bomb and how she treats her. It is different doing it yourself though. But I really enjoyed doing it. There was one moment actually that I had when I was doing a little bit of work on Demeter that I had a very short amount of time before I ended up going on. And it was the moment at the end of Remark when Grisabella is walking off. The whole tribe are just like staring her down, saying, go away. And it goes into Bustopher Jones, which obviously it didn't on the ship. So that transition of Demeter following Grisabella off, one thing I was told was, let the scene carry on, let Bustopher Jones start, but don't take your concentration off of Grisabella, because your thought process is on her at that point. So that was one thing I would never have known, because A, it didn't happen on the ship. It went straight into something else. Can't remember what it was. I think it was Mungo Jerry or something. And B, I'd never been through that rehearsal process in the rehearsals for me to know that was a thing. So little things like that, which are integral to the story, I was a bit like, oh gosh, like I have no idea what's going on, especially because I had no history with it. So it was interesting to find out new parts of the show just from playing new parts. Because I'm still learning about the show. Like, I'll listen to parts of your podcast and be like, oh my gosh, didn't know that.
Yeah.
Even though I've done it for so long.
And that's such an interesting piece of it too. Cause like even little things, I don't think there's an answer to a lot. Well, let me rephrase that. I'm sure there's an answer if you ask the original people that created the show, or like at least their thought process. But what has sustained the show is the fact that there isn't an answer to so much of this stuff, and it allows you to kind of play with that. And I do kind of love the like idea of, okay, you're picking up a new piece. As you did from going from the shortened show to the full show, like did having a Bustopher and some of these other characters change anything about your perspective of the way you played the story? It's like you now have other interact. Now, I guess Bustopher is kind of a worthless, walks in, does his thing, walks out. But there are other cats that are not on the ship that are part of the show that actually do have like some really interesting stories. Did your Bomb necessarily or Demeter evolve as you went from, wow, now I got to figure out how to interact with a Bustopher or interact with the twins or whoever might not have made it through from the ship to Taiwan?
I don't think so much, because kind of like you say, Bustopher Jones, she's just a cute old little number. Only thing is, because Jenny sings it, I did have to have a connection with it. And in a way that kind of helped me with her storyline, because she has that great tap number, but then it's kind of like, cool, Jenny's just there now. She's there as mum. She's kind of enjoying her time, but it added something else to her story, which I don't think would have done without Bustopher. Just that she's still kind of there. She's got some love going on. It made her really fun to play. So with that, not so much. I did really get a bit of a personal connection more with Gus once seeing his story continue a bit more, because on the ship his number is so short and he just sings his little number and he toddles off and that's it. And I just think, he deserves a bit more than that. So to see his kind of love for theatre, especially him come back on at the end and kind of reprise his number and get so emotional, and Gus on the tour was incredible at it. Honestly, I watched him do it and I just started to bawl. It really connected me to that character, at least. I guess that's not necessarily changing how I would act, but my connection to particular character stories that weren't necessarily my own changed.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of my question, is like, it is a difference. I guess if Gus is getting way less time on the ship of the song, and then you're getting more, you are getting a different show. I mean, you're going from 90 minutes to 2.5, like it's an extra hour or 45 minutes at least with intermission. Like that's a lot more show. And I know a lot of that is dancing and parts that are just cut from, other pieces here and there, but there's also actual like full on sections cut. And so it does feel different. I've kind of been dying to see the 90-minute version, because I want to be like, all right, does this change any of the relationships that could have been played or the thoughts there, because you lose some of the whole like big storyline.
Yeah. And I think what's important is that I had just as amazing a time and found just as big a love for the show by starting with the 90-minute version. Like, I remember whilst I was doing it, I was really enjoying doing the show. And then my two best friends on the ship were like, right, you need to watch the 98 film because you've not seen it. Because they would be like, oh my gosh, Peaks and Pollicles. And I'm like, what's that? And they're like, oh, you must see it. It's a must see. And now I've done it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a crazy part of the show. But we sat down like one night in my cabin with blankets and everything, and we watched the film, and I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. But I wouldn't say that I've loved finding out new things about the show by doing the full version, and seeing new interactions and new parts coming out and little character moments be seen. But I wouldn't say it loses anything from its version. It was definitely the right decision for the ship. I think
totally
the show that it is, it wasn't the right kind of show to be that length.
Well, and I talked to somebody who did it before they cut it to 90 minutes on the ship, and because of the way the show is built, you have little memory to end Act 1, and they said that like nobody came back for Act 2 because everyone just thought that was the end.
Yeah,
and they're like, we've got to figure out how to solve that. So like that alone makes sense of like, if you have an audience that is willing to get up midway through and leave, you definitely are got to hold them through intermission. And so I thought that was actually a very smart decision. And then I was like, what'd they cut? And it's like, oh, it's Bustopher. We'll be fine. Like things like that. It's like, we'll be okay. But I love hearing you talk about the character interactions and moments. So what are some of the ones that you, maybe not either that you got to play or that you got to watch? Like, what are some of the character relationships and choices that you really love seeing happen on stage?
And again, I think for me, I noticed a lot of these more by doing it in Asia. And I don't know if it's because I could distance myself from it a bit more. Because we've grown strong relationships and friendships when I was on the ship. So naturally, if I had I was close friends with my Alonso, for example. So we would have quite a few more interactions than I may have done with the Alonso in the Asia tour, just because friendships and everything coming onto stage. It's a very intimate show. Whereas, yeah, with the Asia tour, I was kind of stepped back. I was new, I was fresh, so I was letting the relationships happen. If anyone came to me, I felt I was getting involved. If I saw someone and I wanted to interact, I would go and interact, and it was great. But I also loved watching the interactions happen. I remember, for example, I would either be off stage watching moments, or when I was ended up being on stage, I was also watching my other covers just to be like, oh, what are they doing? Where are they? What are they on this point? And I remember I would always catch eyes with Jenny. She was a very new one for me, character-wise. As I say, like Demeter, I had some way of knowing how to be her, but Jenny was very fresh. So I try and see what she was like on stage and how she would be in her numbers that didn't involve her. And her interactions with all the kittens, I loved it. She was proper mum. She was, especially with like Carl Buckety, for example, and like Bill Bailey, she'd get them all involved. And I loved seeing that play out, so that when it ended up being my turn, that happened more naturally, because I was like, they were coming to me. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. Like, this is what happens. And I feel like I'm getting into character by them being here. And yeah, I loved being able to actually have a go at doing that, as well as seeing it for myself and enjoying watching it. But yeah, I think the character interactions on stage are so important, even if they're not necessarily the highlighted moment in a song or a scene. It's creating the story for the whole stage. And keeps us going.
I think that's what makes the show. And I kind of love, as I've done this so many episodes, and I've kind of read from this all started for me reading from the fan theories, because I'd only seen it twice. I really knew nothing about it. And I've started to pick up that so many of the moments that are like, wait a second, these two might be this type of relationship, are just because the actors and actresses are friends. It's like, oh, these aren't supposed to be together, but they are. And it's like, I love hearing you say that, like, oh, I got Alonzo's my friend. So Alonzo and Bomb, all of a sudden there's maybe this chemistry that like otherwise isn't supposed to be there. Yeah. And it's really that simple. But it also is kind of interesting when you think about you joining late in Taiwan, when you don't have all those relationships established. It's where are you going to plug in and start to create those in the moment? And it's what I think is cool about the shows, because there's just so many different variations of like, here's what I saw today versus what you saw, and this swing is on, and
exactly every show is different,
doing it different.
And I love it.
Yeah,
we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died.
I want to pivot a little bit to talk about something that I think you've done an amazing job of, and I wish more people were doing, which is using the fact that you have cats to use like for your TikTok. And so I have loved seeing that you were able to do, like, I think Cats is built for transitions on TikTok. Like, everyone who's performing has the ability to do pre-getting in costume and post-getting in costume, which is like a TikTok trend for everybody.
If it's going to take me an hour
tell me
to
a little bit about how you started.
I was going to say, if it's going to take me an hour to do that makeup, I'm going to do it. Like 2020, everyone got into TikTok and having a bit of fun with it. So yeah, I got involved. And on the ship especially, there's a lot of pastime, a lot of time to kill. And you'd see a little sound come up and be like, that would be funny. And I remember the first one we did was, I think that was like a SpongeBob sound that's like, why aren't you in uniform? And everyone went off and everyone comes back on. And we'd known these people for a month, but we were like, guys, let's make a TikTok. We got about probably more than half of the cast together to make this like cute TikTok of us changing in from humans into cats and everything. And it did pretty well on TikTok, and I loved doing it. It made it fun in the behind the scenes moments, I guess, and created little memories. And because it was doing well as well, obviously that's always a motivator and a bit of fun. And then, you see a new sound, you're like, well, may as well do that as a cat. And you see a transition video come up and I'm like, oh, well, I could do that from human to cat, or anything like that. So yeah, I loved getting involved, and then got to Asia and those guys are doing it as well. And I'm like, well, clearly it's great. So then we're all getting involved and doing TikToks, and I love it. It's definitely also just sharing the love for the show as well. And then you find people that are like, oh my gosh, I was on the ship on this date and I watched you guys in the show. And I was like, how did you find that? And so it also lets people find us, and it's like fun. It's nice to hear that people have enjoyed watching the show as well as seeing that we're normal. I'd say normal, but fun humans in the background as well.
It's fun. So my TikTok's obviously just for the podcast, so it's like my algorithm is built for cats and musical theater, and I've been surprised at how few. And your cast does have a couple people, at least in Taiwan, that were doing it, and I'm like, finally, because it's not as many people have done it before. And granted, TikTok wasn't big until recently. But one thing I had heard is I was giving a former Ramto Tugger a hard time about this off camera. And he was like, yeah, by the time we get to intermission, everyone's like exhausted and the last thing they want to do is film it. So how did you kind of get your cast to be like, all right, hold on. I know we're about to go on stage. I know we're about to perform for almost 3 hours in front of a full crowd, but like, let's quickly dance this number after we get our makeup on.
Well, especially like my two friends on the ship, we would be like, right, we are going to be ready by the 20-minute call. We're doing this TikTok and then we'll do the show, because we didn't have the intermission. So we didn't have the in-between. Obviously at the end of the show wasn't going to happen. What I did find was it was always on the days where we'd had a 2-show day. So most of us, lucky people that didn't necessarily sweat it off, kept our makeup on between the shows. So it was very quick for us to get ready for the second show. Therefore, we would be like, we're ready early. Why don't we film TikTok? So it was always on those days that we found it. And then other days someone would be like, guys, I just found this sound. Let's try this one. And then we'd be doing it and someone would come in and go, oh, can I be in it? So then people would want to do it rather than just having to be like, let's find the time. I loved doing it. And it was just also like the makeup, like transition ones are always fun as well. Like when you're doing that by yourself, filming like, the time lapses and everything. Then I still look back on them now, especially because the makeup plots are so different between the two productions that I'm looking at them going, wow, that's very different. Which is also why maybe fans love seeing it as well, because they're like, look at the difference between all the different productions as well on how they look and how they do their makeup and everything. So it was mainly all just a bit of fun for me. If people are enjoying it, it's a bonus, but I was enjoying myself, so it's great.
I think that's the only way it succeeds, is if it's fun for you, then hopefully other people do it. Because otherwise, if it feels like a job, it gets point. It's honestly the reason I still record these, is that they're still really fun for me to hear and learn about the different productions versus it feeling like, oh, I gotta talk cats again. Like if it gets to that moment, then all of a sudden it becomes not fun for you, and I don't think the quality of what is produced is as good.
I feel like if anyone thought like that, people wouldn't be I wouldn't have done cats for the second time. Some people do cats for years. And it's like, it's one of those that once you know about it, once you love it, that's it, you're in. You're in for the long haul.
Definitely. Oh, and I've met people who've done the show 8-9 times. And then you've also on the fan side, you have people that have seen it hundreds of times.
Yeah. And I'm like, I've seen it once. No.
Yeah. You've just one time. You didn't watch it as you were like in Taiwan on the days you weren't on?
So I did a show watch. So I was given a watch of the show, but I was making notes. But we had a booth. So we were offstage swings were singing in the booth. So didn't help with me trying to make notes in the shows because I was busy singing, but it kept us involved in the show as well. And we would be there like having our own little like rituals and stuff during the show, like having little moments between us. And so that was a whole different side of the show, seeing it, watching the band play. Because that was another thing, actually a difference. The ship was on a click track, so it's 2 a track. So
interesting.
The music is the same every night at the same length. You follow the music, whereas obviously to an extent you follow the music with a band, but the band follow you. So that was very different as well. But seeing the band play and seeing all the instruments coming out, the flute, for example, and seeing the drums going and Mister and seeing the pianist playing such incredible music, it gave me a whole different perspective on the show that I was like, wow, this is a whole thing that I didn't even get to experience the first time. So yeah, there's always new things to find out about this show.
I mean, and you toured a little bit too, so each theater is probably slightly different, and there's like slight tweaks to the set, and there's all kinds of other stuff, and then you've got swings going on, you've got different people making slightly different choices. So it is one of those shows that there are many shows where I feel like, you get roughly the same thing every time. Like even though there's different people and everything, it's pretty much the same show. There's not a lot of liberties you can take. Whereas I think in Cats, you get a lot more like small liberties, because the lack of plot almost allows you to create more throughout. And I've only seen the show 4 times, which is crazy live. But all 4 were also very different experiences of who was doing this and who was doing that. And of course, the second 2 times I now knew way too much about the show. First 2 times I knew nothing. Second 2 times I'm like, wait, it's like I know everything now, or I know way too much. And even then I'm like, I was noticing different moments where back-to-back shows, people made different choices. Yeah,
well, when you think about it, it's a show with no script. So if you're not singing, and so, for example, I get my stage plan and I'm there as Demeter and it's Gus. I'm told you're there, not told anything else. I'm just told to watch Gus and sit in that spot. And I'm like, okay, well, all the choices are mine. It doesn't have to be the same as that Demeter. It doesn't have to be the same as the next Demeter. Same with any other character. If I'm on stage and it's a new Karbukti on the stage, they're making completely different choices, but they're being their own version of that character. So that's why every show is going to be different, because there's so many numbers where even characters that will sing 1 or 2 lines the entire show on their own. So they've got all these numbers to make their own choices without even saying anything. And so much of the storytelling is because we are portraying something physically. The acting is all going to be physical and with our bodies and with our faces and stuff. So a lot of character choices are going to come just by watching and not necessarily listening, which I really loved.
Yeah. Such a unique piece to it. And it's cool too, with you getting to experience so many different versions. Like, you talk about that for most people. It's like, you get to see some tweaks here, but you got to experience like 2 different shows almost.
I'd say 4, because
4,
3 different shows of 3 different cats, and a whole other show is Bomb. So yeah, very, very lucky. Oh, even 5, swing, offstage booth, that's a whole other show. So very lucky.
Let's do some rapid fire. So if you could go on for one night, and I know you pretty much just finished, so let's say ignoring, whether it's male, female, vocal range, just if it's like, I would love to just play this role one night, one time, who would you want to go?
Oh, I think I loved Bill Bailey for some reason. I wish I could flip like that, but he's just such a fun kitten that can also express his kind of like playfulness by doing all these flips and stuff, which is crazy. And audiences live for it. So I'd love to play him.
I love it. Who are your favorite and least favorite cats in the show?
I feel like my own personal view of it is from like seeing them play on stage. I've always had a little soft spot for Karbukti or Pouncible. In both productions, I've had such sweet interactions with that character and always enjoyed like playing off of them and then watching them as well. I have a little soft spot for the kittens, I think. But Karbukti especially, which I think is kind of a niche answer maybe.
Definitely.
But it's just very, very, very cute. I don't know about least favorite. I don't know. Like, I've never really been that fussed about Grizz. And I feel like that is a very, I don't know. I just feel like she's, I want her to be more present maybe in moments.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like she comes on, goes off, comes back on 50 minutes later. And I'm like, where have you been? What are you doing?
Yeah. This is great for my last question.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If she's your least favorite, then I'm ready. I'm excited to ask you who your Jellicle choice is. Let's go with favorite song from the show.
The opening. It's just so epic. And I just remember, like, I get to the end of the opening and I think, that's insane that we just did that. And I remember watching it and thinking, that's a whole skeptical. Like, the ball itself is incredible, always gets a massive round of applause at the end. But I say the opening is just as impressive as the ball, because it's the same amount of dancing and singing. And everyone gets introduced, everyone's got their moment and their line. Like, it's just a whole ensemble piece. And I love it.
Yeah. Here's my fun one, which is, which cat do you think would be the best TikTok influencer?
Maybe Mungo and Rumpel. I think they'd make a good pair.
Ooh, what's
good
their
online
content?
Duo. Prank videos.
Prank video. So I've asked this question a lot now, and I've answered it a lot of different ways. I don't think I've ever answered them, but I kind of like the idea of like they're doing some
I think
like
they're like
prank
naughty,
videos,
but like people like it, you know.
They're the ones dressed up as the like trees and hiding and jumping out at people, and
yeah.
Okay, I could see that. I always thought it was going to be a Victoria or a Bomb doing
makeup
all the
tutorials,
dances
yeah,
and makeup tutorials, or Bustopher Jones doing cooking.
I love that.
That's
or like,
where I'm kind of
or
landed.
like Jenny Anydots doing like cleaning videos or like housekeeping videos.
Yeah, but she sleeps all day, so she's not gonna.
Very true.
Like she doesn't have the time for that. She's got to do her regular work. She doesn't have the energy to do the fun stuff. Okay, so my $1 million question, and I'm hopeful you're going to agree with me based on what your least favorite cat. But this whole podcast has argued that Grisabelle is the wrong Jellicle choice, and that there should be other cats considered in going up to the Heaviside layer. So I want to know, for you, Lucy, who are you picking as your Jellicle choice and why?
I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? I feel like it would be a different answer every show, even just by how things are played. But I do always think, like I said earlier, I think Gus deserves better. Justice for Gus.
Love it.
But I don't know. Could be different every time.
So I kind of love, let me ask you this question then. So I love that you said Gus, because especially after you said that your Gus has got like, on the ship is much shorter and doesn't get as much of the love. So I'm like, how would you have said Gus if it wasn't for the Taiwan experience? I think is an interesting question. But I want to ask you the question of, how do you think Old Deuteronomy makes the choice every year? Like, is there a criteria?
I don't know. I feel like it would be different every year. Maybe circumstances are different this year. Is it always someone that's done wrong? Is it always someone that's not necessarily welcomed in the tribe every year? Or is this the niche year that they've gone, let's make this a musical? I don't know. So whether this is a special year where he's gone, let's do something and let's teach everyone a lesson, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only positive way I can look at it, being like why he chose her. To teach the kittens something, maybe even more teach the adults something of, don't hold a grudge, maybe. But I don't know. I feel like if you're not part of the Jellicle tribe, can you go to the Heaviside lair? Maybe that's me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's mostly too because I saw a lot of very young Grisabellas perform, which I think has become a trend over the more recent years. Is that I'm like, let her stay a year, let her, let her dance in the ball next year. Like, let's put her through. Like, she's on stage for 15 minutes. Like, let her spend a year with her family. Let her go next year.
Give her some time with the kittens. Let her and Vicky get to know each other.
I think she left, so she's back. Like, let her enjoy her time back. Like, that should be the reward, not the being the choice.
Yeah, because it's just a bit like, there you are, you're the choice, but you're gone now. So then what have they learned?
Did your cast ever talk about it or think about like who could be the choice? Like, hey, this is my turn. Today's my day.
Actually, no. We would have little funny moments on stage during like Old Deuteronomy, for example, when he's talking to us and saying like the Jellicle choice, and we'd be there going, it's gonna be me, it's gonna be me. So like we'd have little moments like that, but never like properly discussed it, which I'd actually be really interested. Hence, maybe why you're doing this.
That's my goal. Yeah, it's my goal is to get that to be part of the rehearsal process.
Doing God's work.
Like, all right, let's. I I'm trying here to influence the Jellicle choice for everybody else in the future. This has been so much fun. How can people stay in touch with you and see all those incredible TikToks and everything else?
Well, my TikTok and my Instagram are both LucyRice98. It's the best way of finding me. But yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this has been so fun. I will link that. And thanks for sharing your stories and all the different experiences you got to have and doing it so shortly after coming back from Taiwan. I'm sure that was a little bit of a whirlwind to finish and get back home.
Yeah, definitely. But it's so nice to talk about it when it's still fresh and as well, and be able to look back on it definitely and think about, especially even the ship memories too. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, catdied.com.